Hi, I'm Sam Hawkins, and I'm doing my Cultural Awareness Task presentation on gender differences. The book I read for this project is called Why Gender Matters: What Parents and Teachers Need to Know About the Emerging Signs of Sex Differences. Before reading this book, I had not realized how important it is to teach or parent boys and girls differently. I knew that boys and girls were created differently and have different strengths and weaknesses, but I did not know all of the aspects of differences between boys and girls. I also learned that if teachers and parents do treat boys and girls the same way, it can lead to some bad side effects. One quote that I love from the book on page 106 was, "There are no differences in what girls and boys can learn, but there are big differences in the best ways to teach them." Most adults do treat boys and girls similarly because by 30 years old, men and women are fully matured and they don't see big sex differences in certain areas of learning, so they assume that it is the same for young boys and girls, but by doing so, this can impair their learning. We live in a gender-blind society, and teachers need to be aware of gender differences so students do not keep suffering in the education system. Moving forward, the first issue I wanted to talk about is hearing differences between males and females. The quote reads, "Girls' hearing was substantially more sensitive than the boys', especially in the 1,000 to 4,000 hertz range, which is so important for speech discrimination." The chart is based on comfortable loudness tolerance levels between girls and boys. As you can see from the chart and the quote, girls like noises at a smaller decibel than boys do because their hearing is more sensitive than boys' hearing. Boys just simply do not hear as well as girls do, and the gap only gets bigger as they get older. A big problem that stems from this is that boys are sometimes wrongly accused of having ADHD because they can't focus in class, but it's actually because they can't hear the teacher well enough to understand and they space out. Most elementary school teachers are female, so the teacher might speak in a tone that is good for them and the girls in the class, but the boys may not be able to hear as well. Girls also might not do well with some male teachers because they talk louder than female teachers and it might sound like they're yelling. Girls tend to shut down and might cry if they think someone is yelling at them. Also, since girls' hearing is more sensitive than boys, girls hear and may get distracted more easily by background noises. Some teaching strategies to avoid this issue would be to move the boys who tend to not focus up to the front of the classroom with girls in the middle or back. Students usually don't seat themselves like this, so moving them may help with rowdiness and peer distraction. By raising a teacher's voice up around 6 to 8 decibels, the boys will hear as well as the girls do, and with girls at the back of the class, a louder voice will be necessary to make sure they can hear too. When talking to girls, though, a teacher should try not to raise their voice up too much because girls don't like that. Eliminating all background noise, or as much as possible, will help girls focus better. By accommodating the needs of students and using these strategies in regards to hearing for this issue, teachers are setting a good foundation for them to learn. Students can carry these foundations with them through life since they were established early, which relates to Proverbs 22:6 that says, "Start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." The next issue between boys and girls is their feelings. The picture reads, "As girls mature, brain activity associated with emotion moves out of the amygdala and into the cerebral cortex. As boys mature, brain activity associated with emotion remains in the amygdala. Boys are not able to explain their feelings well because of the poor connections in their brains. The part of the brain where emotion happens, the amygdala, is not well connected to the part of the brain where verbal processing and speech happens, the cerebral cortex. These connections do develop in girls during adolescence, though. Most elementary teachers are female, so they ask boys about their feelings because that is normal to them, but this makes boys shut down and not like their teacher or even school itself. This affects the way to teach literature because of the emotion that is attached to literature. Asking a boy about feelings makes two parts of their brains connect that don't usually connect for them. To avoid this issue, teachers should split the educational style. By this I mean reading some stories and some nonfiction books for both genders, or stories with strong male protagonists doing unpredictable things. This is the type of fiction that boys enjoy. Role-playing exercises work well for girls, and maps work well for boys because it keeps it objective and uses their spatial relations. Assigning articles from daily newspapers is good for boys as well. Teachers should not ask boys feeling questions either, like questions that begin with "how would you feel?" or "what do you think they felt when?" 1 Corinthians 9:20 NIV says, "To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law." This verse is about Paul adapting himself to the ones around him to try to help them understand the gospel better, but I think it can relate to this issue. When teachers split their educational style, they are adapting their curriculum to help both boys and girls in the classroom better understand a lesson. Another issue between boys and girls is their risky behavior, or lack thereof for girls, and their self-confidence. Boys engage in risky behaviors a lot more than girls do, and boys are likely to get hurt because they overestimate their abilities. Young girls don't take any kinds of risk usually. This is because they might have learned helplessness, and they become passive because they underestimate their abilities. The book suggests that the way girls are raised today may promote learned helplessness because parents sometimes shield their daughters from risk and don't praise them if they engage in risky behaviors, while boys do get praised for this. This isn't healthy for girls because as they grow up, they aren't going to deal with challenges well, explore new situations, or face their fears to master them when it really counts. Some ways teachers can help with this issue would be to encourage girls to take the right kinds of risks to raise their estimation of their own abilities. Teachers can do this by supporting them to have a voice and not stop taking risks if they mess up. Making sure that all the girls are supporting each other as well is important because girls care a lot about what their peers think. For boys, I'm not sure how many risky things they might want to do at school or be allowed to do, but make sure they have a lesson on how to do something risky properly first. Make sure the boy is being supervised when engaging in something risky. Authority needs to be asserted if necessary when a boy wants to do something too dangerous. As a teacher, do not argue or negotiate, but do what must be done to stop him. Make sure to give boys a reality check on their abilities and challenge them if necessary. Holding people accountable is talked about in Proverbs 27:17, which says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another." One role a teacher has is to hold their students accountable and quote, sharpen them. Boys need to be held accountable if they are trying to do something too dangerous or risky, and girls need to be held accountable to be kind to one another and to make sure they are taking risks and facing challenges with grace. Kind of building off the last issue, aggression is a big difference between girls and boys. Aggression might be fun for boys and build friendships among them, but it destroys girl friendships. That may be why boys get into a fight one day and are best friends the next day. But usually if girls get into a fight, they aren't friends ever again. The chart shows that boys engage in more aggressive behavior way more often than girls. This chart is based off of trends in China, but it shows the innate difference between genders well and can apply to boys and girls in America as well. When boys and girls interact, the styles clash and create special risks like fights. Some schools are trying to prohibit aggressive play like dodgeball tag and snowball fights, but this is acting out aggression in a healthy way. By prohibiting boys from these things, aggression may manifest itself in unhealthy ways and cause problems in the classroom. Some strategies to combat this is being aware of aggression differences when boys and girls interact. Teachers must stop something before it starts, so they need to be aware of how boys and girls are placed in the classroom and how they are interacting with each other. Boys need to get their aggression out in PE or recess. Teachers need to encourage boys to get out their aggression in healthy ways at recess or gym instead of banning dodgeball, tag, or etc. This will lead to better lessons in classroom time. If a boy is becoming aggressive in the classroom, they might need to take a break to decompress. A cozy corner with stress relief objects might be a healthy thing to have in the classroom. If the boy is very aggressive, he should leave the classroom to talk to a guidance counselor. Teachers need to educate their students and model James 1:19 that says, "My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." The slow to become angry part is what to focus on for this issue. By letting boys get out their energy at recess or PE, they are less likely to be aggressive in the classroom or slow to anger. Teachers should also model to their girl students how to be slow to become angry if a boy is bothering them because they enjoy being aggressive while girls do not. The last issue I want to talk about is discipline. Lots of parents have become their child's friend and given their authority to them. Parents are worried their kids won't like them if they are firm, but kids don't grow up well with no kind of disciplining. Some parents think that this transfer of authority makes kids more responsible, but these children are more likely to be obese, have sex too early, or become teenage criminals. If the teacher doesn't discipline these children healthily, no one will. Also, there is the issue of gender differences between girls and boys. Strict and authoritative disciplining works well with boys, but warm and fuzzy disciplining works well with girls. Boys and girls won't respond well if the disciplining styles are used on the wrong gender. Here are some strategies to use to combat this issue. For girls 2 to 4 years of age, use verbal correction, inductive techniques that are victim-oriented, time out immediately after a bad behavior. Timeouts would be something parents could use, and make them apologize. Isolation is key. For boys of 2 to 5 years of age, verbally correct them, don't use inductive disciplinary techniques, and put them in timeout. This would be for parents. Also, suggest to parents to lengthen the timeout if it is not effective at first. Use all these techniques on girls 4 to 8 years old and boys 5 to 10 years old. Withdrawal of privileges is also a good method to use for children of this age. Definitely don't cave or negotiate with students. It shows students that privileges must be earned and shouldn't just be expected. For disciplining girls 9 to 14 years old, all the ways suggested before may work, but know the girl and the situation. If their behavior is motivated by a clique, suggest to parents to put her in an alternative group like clubs or sports. Withdrawal of privileges and induction, in the sense of turning the situation around on them, are good disciplining techniques to use for boys aged 10 to 15. For girls 14 to 18 years old and boys 15 to 18 years old, make sure to assert authority and pick the battles. Some may not be worth fighting. Make sure as a teacher to spend more time teaching and having fun with the students than disciplining. It should be a 7-to-1 teaching versus disciplining relationship. New rules must be communicated and enforced to students that may have never been disciplined before and have bad behavior. Also make sure to know a student's family and what's going on before disciplining them, because that could be driving their behavior. Positive discipline is a good way to discipline girls, like modeling or rewarding good behavior, broadening horizons, and gently discouraging bad behavior. Remember that discipline is a good thing, like Proverbs 13:24 says, "Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them." Disciplining students will help them get set on the right path and set foundations for good behavior that will help them prosper in the future, even if they don't like it in the moment. To close, here are my references, and I wanted to use a quote from page 251 of my book. Our job now is to create a society that has the courage and wisdom to cherish and celebrate the innate differences between the sexes while at the same time enabling equal opportunities for every child.